Hi, and welcome to another Octagon Space Ecotourism video. This video is a follow-up to the case video where we just assembled everything. And I'm going to take the opportunity to go through, I guess, all of the design changes. So after every time something is printed and you put it together, you more or less learn something. You've heard me talking about version 1 always sucking and version 2 always being better. Sometimes we got to get to many other versions. And the reason that is that every time you design something, you realize slight improvements that can be made. And I'm going to go through a number of these things right now. So when we put this thing together, we realize one of the most major glaring errors is that these teeth over on this side actually all fell out. So when I grabbed the design, I took the back corner piece and I just took the pieces and I slammed them down. That would be these two over here. And I'm assuming that though they look like they're connected, you can see here that this one clearly isn't. So we're going to get into some of the details of the actual tile, a lot of little subtle things, and you kind of got to get used to the design. But overall, we come in here, we're going to grab our piece, we're going to explode it. I'm going to apologize for the colors. The idea with the colors is just to help with the design. It doesn't really have any significance. But we can look at this whole piece here. It's got a height of 14.8, and if I grab this guy here, it's got a height of 14.8, but we're at 34.2, where this one here is at 33.8. So there, right there is our problem. So again, 33.8 and 33.8 matches, 33.8 and 34.2 does not match. So we just turn this here to 33.8, and now we've just fixed that one overall problem. Normally I catch that in the slicer, so I usually grab a specific piece and I'll slice it in a number of different orientations to make sure that I can catch it, but obviously I did not catch it on this side, on this one. And we can see now here we actually don't have that line anymore on this side or on that side. And that's kind of cool. So we're going to get into other design flaws. I noticed them. Maybe you did or you didn't. You're interested or you're not. If you're not, you can just skip the video. But one of the other glaring ones is if you look at the case on this side, this little edge here, really, really noticeable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explode that. Okay, and if I just zoom in Tinkercad on this guy here, okay, we can see that what I'd want is I want this one to start down at the bottom, which is effectively 0, and then go all the way up to where we are now. So again, these two pieces are as one, so I'm going to explode them. And once again, I have to make sure that I have this as a box. If I have it as a box, I can drop it, and if I look at that, this is 4.2 plus 14.6, we're basically 18.8, so that's got to be the new height. So I'll just drop this to 0, and I go to 18.8, and here we go. So now I want to do the same over here, but in this case I'm going to have to explode it so that the hole is separate. Click away so that I could just click on the box, okay, and most likely it's going to be symmetric, so 18.8 should bring me to where I want to be, and then I'm pretty happy with that. And what I can do is go back and just regroup them in the way that they were before. Okay, so I'm going to take those as one. I'm going to grab these as another. And once again, I have them as a gray. Put you as gray as well. And if I come back over here and I put you all together, what I will get is a piece now that does not have the original problem. So see how this is sticking out a little bit? I'm a little bit worried about that. Okay, so the slicer has anything that's got a lower resolution of 0.2 isn't going to stick out, but I'm not going to take the chance, so I'm just going to undo that, and I'm going to go back to the math. So if I grab this number here, I got 139, okay, and it's starting at 14.8, so that's basically 153.8 is where it ends. So if I grab that, I got 135, and I got 18, I got 153.9. So I think I did the math wrong, but I'm just going to drop this down to 0.7. And I'm going to go back to this one. Okay, so 153.8, and I come back over here, 1 plus 18, right, 40, 53.8. Perfect. But I made a mistake there. This is very subtle. I know I get into a lot of details, but unfortunately, it's the details that actually count. So what I've done now is by not turning, by stretching this before I did that, you can see that my hole is not perfectly round anymore, and it's going to be off center. And believe me, these little details make a difference. So I'm going to undo this. Okay, so I'm back to making this gray, making that gray. Okay, that's great. What I'm going to do is explode this guy. Okay, and what I need to do is bring that down to 7 so that it's 140, 53.8, and once again 140, 53.8. Okay, so now I can put these two guys together once again, make them gray. Normally this thing picks up the thing that's got the smallest piece that has color. That's why it was gray. It's also transparent. If you have to validate it, it's easier to not have it transparent. But now what we have the next time we print this is that this is going to be smooth without necessarily interrupting. Theoretically, I can put another stock there, which will add to the strength, but I'm not going to get into that level of detail. So now if we look at, I was going to say the other design, we have something else going on down here, but I'm going to ignore that. I'm just going to repeat the same thing on this side. If I don't, maybe I'll time-lapse the video. As always, I'll just keep babbling in the meantime. And once again, this one over here, right, I'm going to drop it down to 0. And it's so this plus this is 18.8. So drop this to 0 and 18.8. And right away, I can group these guys together in gray. And I'm going to do the same math over here. So effectively what I have is 18.8 plus 139 is 140, 153.8. So over here, explode you. Okay, don't want to click the hole. I just have a box here. So to get to 153.8, I need to have this at going to be 18.17. You combine these guys. You gotta make it gray. Okay, and I have my first improvement. Now I'm not going to stop here because the other part that I noticed is that there's a hole sitting over here. So because this is sitting out this way, it's going to sound completely counterintuitive. Believe me, what we want to be able to have is a middle piece sitting on top of here. So this is 14.8, okay, and if I explode it again, you're going to see it's 14.8 this way and 14.6, and it took me a long time to arrive at that. So what I want to be able to do is I'm going to copy this piece and I'm going to bring it over here, okay, and what I want it to be is flush with this side over here. I'm in negative numbers over here, so 46 minus 14.8, I'm getting really good at math, is basically 31.2, so that's where I want it to end, okay, and 31.2 minus 14.6, I can go backwards, but effectively it's going to end up being 0.2 closer to this guy. So instead of minus 46, it's going to be at minus 35.8. So I'm going through the math because this is, I guess, my world. Getting good at actually doing the math mentally goes a long way, basically having everything work out well for you. So one of the things when you're doing these types of things is the shape or the orientation of the button. So if I look at the way that this thing is going to slice in, I have to start thinking about how this thing is going to be put together. So in this case here, this is going to be, if I follow the same assembly sequence the next time, I'm going to put these two pieces in here. So this piece here is just going to sit on top here, very benign, and the angle of this button is for the other piece coming down on top. So yeah, so that's going to print fairly well. It's not going to cause me any problems, but you know, it's the right thing to do. So I'm going to hide this guy over here and come back and repeat the grouping. So for me, I put these things together and I mark them as gray as a sign of them being correct. So if they're incorrect or if I'm still working on them, like the major work in doing this piece was actually adding these buttons. The rest of it was all the recycled design. So now I'm pretty happy with what's going on over here. So I'm going to put these guys all together. They're going to come through, take the transparency off, turn them gray, and now I'm done. Or am I? See, here we go. So that's going to fall apart completely. So what I need to do is expand this. Look at this elevation, 33.4. Again, this is a box, and I want it to 33.4. So what I need to do is I got 34.3 and 33.8. So this needs to go up 5. So it's going to be 15.1. So that adds up to 34.3, 34.3, and 34.3. Okay, perfect. So hopefully when this comes together now, I'll not see that little line. So this is a bit of a window into the design world, right? So that now, you know, it's very easy. There's lots of work to do. It's very easy to, I'm going to call it lose patience and not make sure that it comes together. So some people might consider this completely redundant, but I'm going to put these together just to make sure that everything is coplanar, I believe is the right mathematical term. And go back to make it not transparent, solid gray. Okay, so I got a nice surface over there. Happy with that. And if I click away, I got a nice surface around that corner. So I'm pretty happy with that. So another design flaw, I'm going to call it, is that this corner over here ends up being empty. So if we look at the sequence, this is a standard tile, and this dot is actually pointing upwards. So when we're deciding whether we want to fill, we need to snap on top of this one because it doesn't come in over here and it doesn't come in over here. And the right choice is to actually to put it on this piece over here because of the angle of this button over on this side. So again, we're coming in on the underneath part, okay, which is, I guess, interesting in itself. And here we're going to see why we can't do it because it isn't going to touch anywhere. Okay, so theoretically on this side it will touch if we do that. You know, that explains why I left it out in the first place. And, you know, I can show you guys what that looks like in real life, but on this side here we have the same dilemma, which is why I also let it be the way it is. So in this case here it has to come in on the top, so in that case here we can do it. So it's a design improvement, so let's just go ahead and do it. And what we need to do now is start off by grabbing this guy over here, zoom into you, okay, and we need to basically, I'm going to be very specific about this. So what happens is that this is 100.3. Okay, so if these two are aligned perfectly, then this will be 100.3, which I know it is because I set it up that way so that I can do this. This one over here is going to be 130.3. So then all what I can do here is duplicate. So here we got a copy button, but we've got to duplicate and repeat, but I'm having, so then I can just duplicate it. And then I think it was 130.8. Okay, and I always like to double check everything. 130.3, my bad. So for me, you know, I'm showing some CAD practices that I have. In the back of my mind, doing a lot of this CAD work, I always think it shouldn't be this difficult. You know, I shouldn't have to, I don't know, zoom out, zoom in, and do a whole bunch of other things. But I pretty much settled in that, you know, this is the optimal workflow for using Tinkercad. I am interested in using other CAD packages to see if I can get around what seems to be, I'm going to say, a bit of a convoluted or difficult workflow, but I have not found that to be the case. So I've done this long enough now to have settled down on the idea that this is pretty much the most optimal flow. So once again, over here we have, you know, down over here, 172.3. And if I look at this guy over here, it's 172.5. The right thing to do, this has got a button underneath. Okay, so I got to basically explode it. And over here, I don't only have to bring it down to 172.3, which is 0.2, I also got to lengthen it. So normally what I do in this case is I'll lengthen it by 0.2 first, so I don't forget. And then I'll bring this down to 0.3. Okay, and I'll go back to you, like that, and I'm going to combine you guys. Now I'm a pretty big fan of symmetry. So if we're going to do that, I am going to add the piece over here that is going to allow to come in underneath that one. And believe it or not, the best way to do that, I'm going to explode you. Okay, and I'm going to work on centers now, just because it's going to be dangerous to do it any other way. So one of the big things, I was just complaining about usability within Tinkercad. So here I have that hole. I know because it says it's a hole over here. And here I'm using endpoints because it's prompting me to basically switch to midpoints. So I'm going to switch to midpoints. And the midpoint here is 138.5. Okay. So now if I click on this guy over here, which is the equivalent of what I'm looking for, we're going to see that it's 18.4, 152.5, but if I just click on the hole, it's 152.6. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to bring that center, 152.6, to minus 138.5. 152.6 plus 138.5, I'm now officially exceeding the capabilities of my little mind. So here I'm in my Octagon folder where I have all my STL files. I have over here, I call it plant dimensions. I just got a spreadsheet here with a bunch of tabs, and I just do my calculations in the spreadsheet because if you make a mistake, it's just not worth it, right? So what we're looking at now is we're working with the case. So over here, just off on the side wherever, I'll just do, some basically the math that I need to get it going. So with Mac, it's kind of cool that you can swipe back and forth, pretending there's a screen off on the right or left-hand side. So again, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to say what is the center that I'm starting from, 152.6, 152.6. And then I come back over here and I need it at 38.5. I'm going to do the sum of that. So I need to move it back 191. And I'm doing this for a reason because now I'm going to grab both of these guys, right? I'm going to duplicate them. And here I need to bring it back by 191. So 191 minus, or 152.5, 152.5, and it's going to be a negative number, so I'm going to go with that one minus that one. Doesn't really matter at the end. Minus 38.6. So boom, minus 38.6. Hopefully I duplicated it. Okay, so at least along the x-axis, we're in the right ballpark. And then I'm going to do the same. Well, I don't have to actually do the same. I'm just going to grab the whole because that's what I want to line. So it's 127.2. And I know that that's, right now, 112.3 is going to be the same for that and that. So let's go back to figure out what this was. 127.3. So then I can just grab this here and go 127.3. Pretty happy with that. Okay. Question becomes, now again, if I look at the center of this on the x-axis, it's minus 38.5. And if I just grab the box, it's going to be minus 138.6 because when it connects, it's actually, that's where the 0.3 or the 0.2 extra is going, is to tag this on. And then on this side, it actually works as your tolerance so that after they print, your pieces, you don't want them rubbing up against each other or you want them to slide in together. I think the previous video was pretty good at showing how, despite you being able to see straight through it, like you can see this gap over here, that happens in real life. Number one, things are still pretty tight. Okay, so if I look at these things here, these two things are butting up against each other. So I want to slide the gap between here and here is 0.4, 0.2 on either side. So what I should be able to do, or what I have to do, is switch it back to endpoints. So now the dimension goes to the starting of this thing, right? So 120, 134.6, and this guy over here is 135.1. So I basically got to stretch it by 0.5 once again. So I'm going to do that. That's 1, 2, okay, and if I come back over here and I put these two guys together, hopefully we'll get one nice flush piece. And now at least when I look at this thing from the outside, the next time we print it, if we're ever going to do a case anytime soon, the surface will at least look good. Okay, so what we've just done is with this guy fills the hole that is here, and it's not a hole necessarily, just that it comes in on top of this piece, and this guy over here, sorry, this guy. That one covers on top of that one, and this one here will come in underneath that one. And like the other one, I like to have it gray just to say that it's ready to go. I could bring this into the slicer, but I'm going to stop it here because a lot of times what I do is capture these little errors now and make sure that the design is perfect, and then I'll normally add other additions or improvements that are hopefully low enough risk so that the version 2 is better and the new things don't introduce any errors. But if you are going to do like a big risky piece like this, it's better off to just basically cut it off and just maybe print this piece, and do a test fit if the adjacent piece is already up and running. So I'm going to end this video here. Like to pepper in a little bit of Tinkercad or CAD. For me, I've looked at other CAD software, thought about switching. The fact that this is in a web browser, that I can use it on my Mac, and it's free, and I've learned to do some pretty sophisticated things, is actually good enough for me. Here's the model of the light, which I currently have printing on the 3D printer. It's designed to fit to the slot here with a 0 tolerance. So normally for this thing, the TPU that I'm using to print this guy in is needs to be over extruded, so the flow has to be at 1.2 in order to achieve the same density. So I'm expecting it to still be a pretty loose fit. But overall, we have our case. It basically is as good as it's going to get, barring any experience. And like I said, we've corrected over here 1, 2, 3. I'm talking about joining these two pieces together. 4, 5 design errors. 3 if you don't count the symmetry of the error, and that by making the error on one side, we automatically made the same error on the other side. So I'm pretty sure that even if this angle button is angled, it's still going to pop itself in. So, but time will tell if that's a good idea. Overall, going for completeness and strength, assembly has to be forced a little bit. I'm pretty happy with the amount of give or how everything snapped together in the previous video. So with that being said, thank you very much for your attention, and we'll see you in the next video.